Hi. Welcome to Motivational Moments on Wednesday at noon, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. I wanted to talk to you about role models, especially because we're all women with guts. We each have our own story, but then again, it's always important to learn about other people's stories. And just yesterday, I was listening to a four-part series with Suze Orman. And you probably all have heard about Suze Orman. She's like the go-to financial person worldwide. And I always thought she had been successful her whole life, not knowing much about her background. But when I signed up for this webinar, and it was free, and I'm always learning, as we all should be learning about different subjects that interest us and different subjects that we really need to know more about. And I thought, who better to learn from than Suze Orman? So when I clicked on it, the first video, I was really surprised. She went into a long, in-depth description of how she grew up, where she grew up, and not having money. And she became the superstar she is today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about her story, and I hope I remember all the facts. So Suze, if you're listening, please forgive me. But I thought it was just fascinating. She didn't have money growing up. I just told you that. She lived on the south side of Chicago in not a very good neighborhood. And her mother had like three jobs, and I mean, it was just enough to keep her and her brother going. And she had a speech impediment. In fact, she said that she had a hard time pronouncing certain words, and she had a hard time reading. And when she was in school, they used to put the kids that had trouble reading or even speaking all the way in the back of the class. So she was always one of those students, and they'd make fun of her because she had a hard time pronouncing words and a hard time reading. She actually was able to go to college. She went to University of Chicago. She never got above a C as a grade, but she was able to get through college, and then she borrowed $1,500 from her brother to buy a van and go cross country to California, and that's where she wanted to find a job. And she must have been a really strong young lady, and we know how she is today. She's probably just the same when she was younger. Anyway, she was determined, and she felt like being in California was a place to be. She lived in her van for like 3 months while she looked for a job. She finally found a job at a bakery. I think it was called Buttercup. I think it's called the Buttercup Bakery. And it wasn't very much money, but it was a job. She started working there. I think she started in 1970. I wrote a note somewhere, 73. She stayed with that job until 1980. She was 29 years old, and she couldn't have been making very much money, but she had a dream of opening her own restaurant. So she called her parents and said, is there any way you can loan me like $20,000 to start a restaurant here in California? And they were like, are you kidding? We don't have any money. So she decided that, oh well, let me just shelve that dream. And she was talking to one of her best customers, a very well established person in the business world, and him and his friends used to go there for coffee every day. And she told him that she wanted to open up a restaurant. And he said, oh, hold on a second. So he went back, talked to his friends. They all wrote checks, and he presented her with $50,000. Unbelievable. Well, anyway, so she had this like promissory note on a napkin, and it said, this $50,000 is a loan to you, but interest free, and if you can't pay it back, that's okay too. Well, before he gave her the money, though, he said, what I want you to do, you need to go down to Merrill Lynch down the street, and you need to open up a money market account. And that's when you'll start to accumulate money, and then you'll put it in a safe place, and that's where you need to go. And she coming from no money and no experience in business, really, except for working in a restaurant, she said, well, what is a Merrill Lynch and what is a money market account? So we explained it to her that it was a safe place to put money and that it would grow in interest. So she went down to the Merrill Lynch office. She met a guy there who was the broker on duty and said, I have $50,000. I want to put it in a money market. Can you help me? Well, turned out this guy was not very ethical, and he had her sign some papers blank for that money and told her that he was going to get her interest, like $100 a week interest, which was so much more than she was working where she was. And she thought, oh, that's great. He said he was going to put it in options. Well, options, for those of you that don't know, is probably the riskiest of investments that you can do. So for 3 months, he was selling and buying these options. And after 3 months, he lost all of her money, all $50,000. Well, she was crushed. She was just devastated. So she went back to Merrill Lynch and said, this is what happened to me, but is there any way, do you have any positions open? I really need a job that's going to pay more money because I can't continue to work in this bakery. And I understand that you show people how to make money. Can you hire me? What happened, like around the 1980s, they were looking for more women. The brokers were pretty much all male. In fact, there were 100 male brokers and no women. So she went at a very good time. So she started to work at Merrill Lynch, and they were paying her a good amount of money. They were paying her like $1,500 a month back then. And she got good at what she was doing. She passed the test to become a broker, the Series 7. Then she started reading, and she found out that there was a rule in securities and in this industry of finance that it's against the law to take advantage of somebody that doesn't have money, something to do with ethics and the way it works with financial institutions. So she took that and she went to a lawyer. She decided to sue Merrill Lynch to get her $50,000 back. And at that time, money markets were earning 18% interest, which is crazy when you think about it, right? So she filed a lawsuit against Merrill Lynch and against this broker because he broke this law because he knew she did not have money. And all she had was that $50,000 and that she could not lose that money. Putting her in options made it seem like she was okay if she lost that money. So anyway, to make a long story short, she filed this lawsuit. Well, she went to her boss and explained it to him, and he realized that this particular broker had made a serious error. He said, let's dismiss the lawsuit. I'm going to pay you your $50,000 back with interest. So she got all her money back and with 18% interest. And you know what she did? She went back to those original investors and she gave them all the money back plus interest. And then she continued to work at Merrill Lynch and she became successful, as you know today, by this experience. And one thing I wanted to tell you about experiences like this, it may seem it's really negative or poor mouthing or, sad story. But you know what? As Suze explains, those stories that happen in our lives, whether it's to her or to you or me, those are important stories because those stories, if we overcome the negativity and overcome the experiences that were unpleasant or destructive, we become a much stronger person. And she credits that experience as just what propelled her to do better, what propelled her to learn more and to understand more about money. And she said the best person in charge of your money is yourself. And that the more you can learn about money and investing and saving, you need to be in control of your money, because if you're in control of your money, then you have power. And if you don't, then you feel less than. And you just have to be in the know. And eventually you trust other people that are like minded as you are, but not people that are going to take advantage of you, like this one person did back in the day when she first went there, asking for a money market to protect her $50,000 investment that she got from her friends. So I think there's a real lesson in that. First of all, I applaud her as a woman with guts, and I applaud her for rising above the norm and really having a struggling background, but it made her stronger, and that she has been able to help other people. And when I listened to this webinar, this 4-part series webinar yesterday, she has a way of talking to people like, you're talking to your sister, or you're talking to your mother, you're talking to your best friend. She's so kind. She was talking about the basics of credit card debt, the basics of investing and retirement accounts. And I'm thinking to myself, she's such a helpful person. She's not, grandiosing herself, and she's makes lots of money, but she's very real, and she likes to get down to all of our levels and to just help us with the basics. I'm sure she has other advanced courses, but this is a particular one I listened to yesterday. And I am guided, as you know, by my intuition. In fact, I didn't know what we were going to talk about today until this morning, when I realized that it was important to share Suze Orman's story. And when I listened to her, I listened to 2 of the videos now from the yesterday when I started the first one, and I was so impressed that the first one she talked about her background and how she was raised and how she had no money and lived in a van and all these kinds of things. And I thought, wow, what a great story to share. And I was so grateful that I had tuned into that episode to learn what her background was and how she has overcome those obstacles. So think about the obstacles in your own lives and what you can do to overcome them. And a lot of it is just learning and not giving up. If you want more money, learn about money. If you want to be a better musician, learn about music. There's so many things that you need to do, that we can do for ourselves, that are empowering. Look to mentors. Look to people that are in your particular field that you trust and that you feel like you can learn from, and you can become better at what you do. Because that's something that we can control. Remember, we can control our time and we can control our energy. So if you get those 2 things going and you just keep moving forward one day at a time, things will fall into place. So have a great week, and I will talk to you next Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And I hope that all of you have a Women with Guts beautiful day. Thank you.